Sophia's POV. The next school day rolled around, and I found myself standing outside the school gates before 9, scanning the crowd for Emma. The sky above was heavy with dark clouds, and the rain had begun to spittle down, the first signs of the impending storm. Finally, I spotted Emma disembarking from the large yellow school bus, her pace quickening as she rushed towards the entrance, having not seen me yet as she used her arms to shield herself from the rain. I waved to her excitedly, catching her attention amidst the sea of students when she got closer, as her eyes seemed to light up warmly, rushing towards me. "Morning, Emma," I called out, my voice barely audible over the growing patter of rain that grew heavier by the seconds. She weaved towards me, a bright smile lighting up her face despite the dreary weather. "Sophia." "Hey," she exclaimed, hurrying over to join me under the shelter of the entrance canopy. "We have English together first, right?" I asked, my excitement bubbling over at the thought of spending more time with my newly found friend who seemed like the most normal and down-to-earth student I had come across so far, already offering me a newfound comfort. "Yeah, we do," Emma confirmed, her enthusiasm matching mine. "It makes the class more exciting now, doesn't it? We can sit together and maybe even work on some projects together if there's any partner stuff. I always hated the partner crap, that's when you would really notice that nobody likes you." She buzzes in a rant, helping me to feel more normal at the school as we walked. I nodded eagerly in agreement, already envisioning us chatting and laughing together in class like normal teenagers. "Definitely. Speaking of sitting together, do you think Daryl would mind swapping seats with you?" I was thinking that I could just ask him. I asked, remembering our conversation from yesterday and expressing my thoughts out loud about how we could sit closer. Emma's eyes widened in understanding. "Oh, I don't know, he's in with Vincent's crew, right? He might just tell us to get lost," she voiced, her worry evident as I shake my head and laugh. "Nah, not Daryl. He's actually really nice. He's nothing like Vincent, believe me. I'll ask him when we get there," I encourage, as she sighs and nods along with the idea, clearly not wanting any trouble from anyone in the process. But Daryl was different. He wouldn't mind, it isn't even a big deal asking for a seat swap, right? When we reached our English class, Daryl was already there, chatting with a few other classmates near the back as he laughed loudly and hadn't noticed us coming yet. I glanced at Vincent's empty chair on passing, pondering over whether or not he had possibly skipped school today due to the weather. The thought alone brought me some relief, but the bell had only gone seconds ago, so maybe I was being too hopeful. I continued to approach Daryl tentatively with Emma at my back, feeling a knot of nerves forming in my stomach as he eventually noticed me and raised a brow. "Daryl, hey," I greeted him awkwardly, trying to sound casual despite my racing heart. I wasn't nervous to ask the question, but I just didn't like how the other students stared holes through me in a suffocating silence just to be nosy. He turned his body fully towards me, with a smile slowly spreading across his face. "What's up with you today? You seem more jumpy," he replied, his usual warmth evident in his voice, which regularly put me at ease. I hesitated for a moment before plunging ahead with my request, deciding that it was now or never. "Do you think you could consider swapping seats with Emma today? We thought it would be nice to sit together, she's a friend," I explained quietly, gesturing towards Emma who stood beside me, her expression hopeful yet nervous. Daryl's smile faltered for a moment, his brows furrowing in confusion as he looked between us both. "Oh, well, I've always sat here, but yeah. I guess so," he replied with a shrug, his tone slightly subdued and icy for the first time since I had met him. I frowned a little, puzzled by his reaction and not wanting to upset him at all with the move. Daryl had always been so easygoing, but now he seemed weirdly disappointed. "Are you sure? Only if you really don't mind," I pressed, wanting to make sure that he was okay with the change and didn't feel pressured by everyone watching. Yeah, it's fine," Daryl assured me, his smile returning albeit somewhat forced as he stood up slowly and took his things with him. Reluctantly, he cleared his throat and moved towards the seat Emma had vacated for him, leaving me feeling bewildered and unsure of what just happened. Maybe that's just his comfort since it had always been his seat. Maybe he likes his spot but didn't want to say no to me? I could always ask him later if he would prefer to switch back. We sank down into our chairs as class began, but I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was amiss with Daryl today. But as Emma and I sat side by side, laughing and chatting like old friends who had known each other for years at every chance we could, I pushed aside my concerns, choosing instead to focus on the happiness of the present moment. "He didn't seem too happy," Emma whispers, motioning her head over towards Daryl as I glanced quickly to find his eyes fixated on us both as we spoke. "No, I really think he will be fine with it, don't worry. That's not like him, maybe he's just having an off day. I assure her, sounding more as though I were trying to convince myself of the fact instead. Whatever Daryl's reaction meant, I was determined not to let it scare off my one and only friend here. You seem to know him well? Emma pushes, curious and on edge, continuing to glance at him from time to time, immediately diverting her eyes when she found him to still be staring. He's been nice to me ever since I got here, and he's pretty easy to talk to, that's all. I nod, pushing a smile as I remembered the times Daryl had insisted on walking me home, being a total gentleman. I would hate to upset him, to have him act colder towards me, just like, sorry I'm late. Vincent suddenly makes his grand entrance, with his usual smug smile plastered across his face. My jaw nearly dropped, as my anxiety skyrocketed seeing his eyes find my chair amongst the class, crushing the little hope I had of him not showing up today. Mr. Walker, may I just ask, how are you bone dry if there is a current storm happening outside? The teacher questions, evidently displeased with his late arrival, as he shrugs and moves towards his empty chair. He was right by his question, as I turned to glance towards the window, seeing the battering rain ripping down from the clouds. There was not one drop of water on him, so where actually was he? On that note, the door opened again, revealing a girl student with flushed cheeks and slightly messy hair. Sorry, I got caught in a meeting at the office. She blushes and giggles, before turning to smile at Vincent, who looked victorious to say the least. Oh, now I get it. A twisted knot formed within my stomach, watching their sneaky exchange, and seeing the dark-haired girl move around the room in the shortest skirt I think I had ever seen. The teacher continued on with the lesson with a brief shake of the head, deciding that it would be more beneficial to ignore the encounter as opposed to addressing it. Vincent turned to Amy, throwing me a wink as Emma audibly gasped from beside me as I turned to her. Ignore him, he does this to me every day, I don't know why. I grumble, feeling more frustrated with him today than usual. It seems that everything Vincent does purposefully tries to get a rise out of me, and I still can't put my finger on why. Why me? What does he love about tormenting me so much? Sophia's POV as the day wore on, the storm outside seemed to grow wilder, the wind howling and rain lashing against the windows with increasing ferocity. Inside the classroom, the tension I felt earlier only seemed to escalate, making it difficult to concentrate on the lesson as it drew to a slow end. Daryl's occasional glances in my direction and Vincent's lingering stares only added to my discomfort, leaving me feeling hot and under pressure by the pair of them combined. What you got next? Emma asks, as I pout my lip and sigh. Physical ed. I hate it so much. The girls in my class suck and so does the teacher. I explain, remembering back to yesterday's attack and how painful it had been to try and wash and detangle my hair when I had gotten home. I also thought back to how Vincent had warned the taller girl to leave me alone, which seemed out of character for him since I couldn't quite put my finger on why he even cared. I hated it too, but there's a way to get out of it, you know? Emma explains, instantly gathering my interest. How so? I ask for more, deciding that at this point I would do anything to avoid going back to that class. The bell suddenly rang out, as students jumped out of their chairs to leave, since the lesson itself had probably been one of the most boring that I had ever sat through in my life. Daryl gathered his stuff and approached Vincent, who waited for him by the door, suddenly choosing to avoid looking at me on passing, which hurt my feelings a little. What was up with him today? So, what do I have to do to get out of the class? I clear my throat and return my attention to Emma, who slowly packed her books away. It was now break time, and I had 15 minutes to figure it out before the next class starts. Go to the office and sign up for extra credit. They will ask if you want to do it during physical ed or after school, and you say physical ed. Most students do it after school hours because they don't want to drop out of a subject, so the slots are pretty quiet during the day. Emma explains, as we exit the class together. That sounds pretty easy. Come on, we can go to the office and sort it out now. Emma motions, as I nod and smile thankfully at the thought of not having to go back there. This is a true save. I couldn't face that class again. One girl even attacked me yesterday and I got detention for it. I give Emma more insight into my situation as her eyes widen. No way, seriously? The girls here are ruthless. That's why I try and keep to myself, Emma sighs, as we round the last corner to approach the office. Entering inside, I follow her towards an information board with the list of different extra credit choices to select from. It's pretty easy, you just pick something under this column, which are the ones running when you have physical ed, and tell the office lady to change it for you on the timetable. Emma says as she points to the correct list and I scan over them. Okay, so my options are litter picking duty, organizing the library, doing sport laundry or sorting the school stockroom. Great. I don't know what to choose, but any is a step up from taking part in physical ed. I laugh loudly, causing Emma to giggle only moments before the office lady harshly shushes us both. Slapping a hand over our mouths in horror, I turn back to the list and thought the library may sound peaceful, but it can be pretty busy at times with classes using the room, and the librarian can be a nightmare to assist, I've heard. Emma explains, as I nod and mentally cut that choice from the list. Litter picking doesn't sound ideal today with the storm. I can imagine it must suck on days like this. I sigh, as Emma agrees, and I score that from the list too. So that leaves doing the laundry or sorting the stockroom, which I would take either or, to be totally honest. I shrug, as Emma smiles. Why don't you ask how many people are doing those and go for the quieter one? She suggests, as I decide to do just that and approach the office desk. The lady is different to the one who was here on my first day, as she peers up at me from behind the computer and evidently groans. Yes? She questions hurriedly, as I swallow the lump in my throat, instantly feeling intimidated by her. I want to sign up for extra credit, in column 4. I was wondering how many people were signed up for doing laundry or for the storage room. I explain, as she sighs and clicks a couple of buttons on the computer. Taking her time, I glance to Emma, who rolls her eyes at her attitude, which causes me to stifle a giggle and return back to her. So laundry has 3 people assigned and the storage room has 1. She states, as I nod and force a smile. I'll do the storage room then, please. Does it start today? I ask, hopeful, unable to hide my tone, as she moves back to click some things again. Name? She demands, as I open and close my mouth for a second as though I had forgot. Sophia Isabella. I recite, as she smashes her manicured nails against the keys to type me in. I wait, hearing the bell sound out for the end of break, as Emma picks up her backpack from the floor and pulls it over her shoulder. Starts today. I've updated your timetable. Whenever you have physical education, you will report to Mr. Stanley to sign in for stockroom duties instead. She tells me, as I thank her and head for the door with Emma. Words couldn't explain how much relief I felt knowing that I wouldn't have to show my face to the physical ed teacher ever again, including those awful girls I wouldn't have to face in the changing room. It's on the way to my next class. I'll show you where to find Mr. Stanley. Emma motions, as I follow behind her, not knowing how I would have found the location on my own. I hadn't thought that far ahead yet, feeling so overwhelmingly grateful for Emma fixing the one class I had absolutely hated since being here. It's a pretty easy job. You'll be given school supplies to unbox and shelf. Mr. Stanley teaches science, so he will sign you in and then should just leave you alone to do the job. Sometimes you'll have to sort boxes for each class and deliver them to the doors too. She explains my roles, as I nod and feel a warmth growing in my stomach. The job sounds absolutely ideal for me. Quiet and easy, not having to be watched over by a harsh teacher every 2 seconds either. That was a bonus. We climbed up a set of stairs close to the lunch hall, before reaching the large room which read, "No students allowed." This is it. Mr. Stanley should be here soon if he isn't already inside waiting for you. Emma states, as I thank her and watch as she glances down at her watch. Gotta run before I'm extra late. I'll meet you here for lunch. She states quickly, as I nod before watching her hurry off down the hallway. I turn on my heels, grabbing the door handle, before stepping inside to the huge shelved room. Another extra credit helper? Excellent. What is your name and I'll sign you in. I don't think I've seen you before. A slim bearded man approaches me when hearing the door open, his smile warm. He looked like a science teacher, with his checkered button-up shirt and brown slacks. I open my mouth to speak, only to hear somebody else answer for me. Sophia? I turn to find the last person I ever expected to see in here. Vincent. Sophia's POV. What the fuck are you doing here? Vincent spits in distaste, as the warmth in my stomach quickly diminishes. Vincent, watch it. I've been fair with you, don't give the poor girl grief. Mr. Stanley warns with a point of his finger, as Vincent pauses to think before offering a stiff nod. I shuffle from foot to foot, no doubt looking like a deer caught in headlights, considering that he was the last person I expected to find in here. Sophia, is it? What is your second name? Mr. Stanley pushes, grabbing a small notepad from his back pocket. Sophia Isabella. I whisper, feeling increasingly hot under Vincent's scorching gaze. Great, Sophia, I'll sign you in and I'll be back in an hour to check in since I have a class to take right now. I fully expect Vincent here to be on his best behavior, and if you have any issues, please feel free to pass them on to me. Mr. Stanley states, eyeing Vincent warningly before moving to exit, as I had to fight back the urge in me to scream at him not to leave me here alone. Being alone in a storage room for an hour with Vincent seemed like literal hell. He clearly hated me, for whatever reason I don't know, but at the same time he would often confuse the hell out of me. The second the door closed, leaving us both completely alone, I couldn't help but think that this must be how it feels to be left alone with a psychopath, on edge and terrified of their next move at all times. Although, this was the same guy who granted me a job here in town, as fucked up and as twisted as it seemed. I couldn't ever read him or work him out. He was impossible. I'm starting to think that you're stalking me? Vincent begins, leaning on a shelf rack casually as I remain planted by the door, knowing that if I had to escape it would still be possible. No. I decided to drop out of physical ed after what happened yesterday. I blunder out, like a desperate fool trying to get approval from him. Vincent eyes me, his features emotionless as he always takes his time to respond, leaving each moment between our exchanges almost agonizing to bear. Why? I told that bitch to leave you alone. You don't have to hide from her. Vincent states as though that should have been the problem squashed. No, I don't enjoy the class in general, even the teacher, it's just not a great fit for me. I whisper out an explanation, as he rolls his eyes and mutters something from under his breath. So you end up stuck in here with me? Because unlike you, I got kicked out of my last class and need to do this now instead without a choice. He sneers, as though I was an idiot for opting to be here when to him it was a punishment. I sigh, rubbing a hand up my arm for comfort, not really knowing what to do or say next. I wouldn't offer to leave and go back to class, there was no way. I would rather be stuck here with him over going back there. Maybe I could swap over to doing laundry instead for next time? I suggest, trying to make a compromise as he seems somewhat surprised by the offer. He stands back upright, glancing around at the dusty boxed room, before throwing his head back with a groan. Maybe you should. But today you'll just need to stay here and help. He states firmly, turning to grab a large box from the shelf to place it on the desk in the center of the room. Just tell me what to do, and I'll stay out of your way. I offer softly, intertwining my fingers to ease my anxiety. He always had me on edge, and I didn't enjoy how unpredictable his moods were either. There's some printouts over there with what each class needs delivered on Monday. You can start sorting the stuff into boxes for them. He points to the corner with a stack of papers as I nod and move around him cautiously to reach it. Time moves slow, and the silence between us both only grows more uncomfortable by the minute as we both remain quiet to do our job. Just when I think that the entirety of my time here will go on like this, Vincent speaks out once again. Whilst I remember, what the fuck happened to my lunch orders? Vincent demands, as my hands tremble at the sudden confrontation. Oh, that, well, Daryl told me to stop, but I can do it again if you want me to? I turn to face him, finding an amused glint in his eyes now. He uses a knife to rip open the tape of another order, forcing me to watch him perform the swift motion before placing it aside to use his hands to remove the contents, his tattooed muscles flexing you. Enter his tight-fitting black tee. You'll just do whatever I say, won't you? He glances up to me, his eyes piercing into my own as a test of my defiance. But right now, all I could do was nod. Because you're a good girl. He smirks, as I remain still, feeling the sweat begin to build on my forehead at the intensity of our exchange. Why did he have such a hold over me? Maybe I'll just keep you around, you know? He ponders, continuing to open packages and moving to sort the contents into piles. I chew my lip anxiously, unsure of whether to speak or not, but knowing that even if I wanted to, I wouldn't know what to say back to him. Because that ass of yours is actually pretty fucking decent to stare at during this, the way you bend over to sort out those boxes. I reckon that I could make some use out of you after all. Vincent concludes, watching me with each word for a reaction. His words hit me like a gut punch, as I don't even react due to the utter shock I was experiencing. Did I just hear him right? Why is he trying so desperately to hurt my feelings? As if he would ever be attracted to the likes of me? Not in a million years. Please. I find myself saying, as my eyes brim with sudden tears that stem from how overwhelming it was to be stuck in the same room as him for this long. Please what? Bend you over and fuck you? I can practically smell how fucking hot and bothered I make you, poor thing. I bet you've never even been touched before, have you? Ever been kissed? Vincent presses on, his tone arrogant and somewhat flirty. The first tear spills, not because I was scared, but because I felt embarrassed. I must look utterly desperate to him, as though I'm over here trying to bend over and get his attention. The way I was staring as he unboxed the items must have looked needy and desperate too. He must be laughing on the inside, knowing that I would never have a chance with the likes of somebody on his level. Maybe in my old life, before everything went to shit. I was normal back then and took better care of myself and my appearance. Now I was just a shell of a person, knowing how it felt to be an outsider who was bullied and laughed at regularly. I don't mean to make you cry. Vincent suddenly stops in his actions, placing everything aside as he leans his hands on the table with a blank stare. I remain silent. It was a joke. I was trying to lighten the mood because it was awkward. I was a dick earlier, you don't have to swap to laundry, you can stay here. He explains, as I nod slowly. That was just it, this was all just a joke to him. My feelings were a joke. Sophia's POV. So how was it? Chilled and calm compared to what your old class was? Emma skips towards me giddily, as I exit the storage room looking and feeling somewhat disheveled. Whatever it was, it looks like you've been working hard. Emma suddenly laughs, as I force out a smile, with my mind doing overtime trying to catch up with everything that had just happened. On that note, the door opened from behind me, revealing Vincent as he emerged from the same room, causing Emma's eyes to grow the size of saucers, instantly stepping out of his way. Vincent dusted off his large hands, squaring out his shoulders from behind us, looking somewhat amused with himself as usual. Don't sweat it about bringing me lunch, Sophia. It seems that I'll be making you work hard in other ways now. Vincent winks, as some nearby girls begin to whisper and take notice of our exchange. Crap, that's all I need, rumors about me coming out of the storage room with Vincent. As if people would believe it anyway, right? He wouldn't go near the likes of me. Oh okay, I respond, licking at my drying lips as he laughs and shakes his head in amusement, tossing his black jacket over his shoulder and beginning to walk off, causing every female in passing to almost collapse at his feet. No way. Was he seriously the only other student assigned to work in the storage room out of the whole school? What are the damn chances of that? Are you okay? Was it torture? Emma rambles the second he walks off out of earshot, as I finally feel as though I can catch my breath. Taking a moment, I close my eyes over, exhaling slowly before opening them back up again to find a concerned Emma staring back at me. I just don't know what to do when he's around me. He loves tormenting me in every single way. At first he seemed annoyed that I was even there, and then he said that he doesn't want me to change to laundry when I offered to switch. He even made comments about my ass at one point just to humiliate me. I ran to my friend, as we walked towards the lunch hall together in a hurry. Emma was shocked but also engrossed in my experience, as I confided in her to hear me out. It took off a lot of anxiety and pressure, knowing now that I had someone to rant to when I so desperately needed it. He's awful. Emma shakes her head and grits, as I somewhat oddly feel bad at her words. He wasn't all bad though. Sure, he seemed to make my life a living nightmare at school, but he also gave me a job when I desperately needed it and defended me when the girl in my gym class attacked me. He can actually be okay sometimes, when he wants to be. I just can't predict him and it stresses me out. I huff, as we join the queue for food. You have serious guts for even engaging with him in the first place. I would have bolted out of there the second that I saw him. Even Daryl too, you approached him to ask him to switch seats as though it were nothing this morning. Emma states in disbelief, still struggling to understand my awkward relationship with the pair. That was the key word, awkward. There was nothing else that suited. I seem to always find myself stuck with them both, particularly Vincent, ever since my first day here. What's the deal with them anyway? Why is everyone so on edge around them? I mean, I can understand Vincent, but Daryl seems sort of sweet. I admit, feeling my cheeks blush ever so slightly when hearing the word out loud. We trudge forward as the queue shortens. As I glance over today's choices, grateful that I hadn't been reposted as Vincent's private lunch service once again. I feared earlier that he was going to demand that I bring him lunch again, telling me to ignore what Daryl had told me to do, but thankfully he never. Instead, he stated he would make me work in other ways. The thought alone sent a shiver down my spine, knowing that his evil little brain would be doing overtime to come up with a number of ways to torture me either through the bar or in the storage room. But time would only tell, and right now, it was useless to worry over. If they aren't busy running the school, then they pretty much run the rest of town. I've heard rumors that Vincent's parents are big-time gangsters, but they are rarely ever in town, which is a good thing. Vincent lives in a huge house with Daryl and a couple of other guys. They've done some bad things, you know? Emma explains, her voice hushed as I listen eagerly to find out more about the pair. Vincent's family are gangsters? Crap, if things weren't bad for me before, then they were now. That explains his arrogance, and explains why everybody seems to either cower or swoon before him. But maybe it was just rumors? I know firsthand how damaging a false rumor can be. Being a gangster isn't a title I would wish upon anybody, and for his sake, I hoped that it wasn't true. What sort of bad stuff? I push further, as we approach the queue and are next in line to be served. People talk, and a lot of the time I'm just in the background listening, but I heard that they sell and beat people up for not paying. Emma nods as she informs me, causing an audible gasp to escape from my lips. Sell what? Drugs? I panic, as she hushes me and looks around to ensure that nobody nearby had heard our rambles. Yeah, well, so I've heard anyway. Emma confirms, as my heart begins to pound from inside of my chest. Not Daryl. He wouldn't be involved in something so dark. I shake my head in disbelief of what she was telling me, pushing back the sickening feeling growing in the pit of my stomach. Vincent most definitely could pass for a major drug lord in town, but not Daryl. He was different, too approachable and kind. But they were best friends after all. Therefore they must have something in common. That's just what I've heard. I don't know any of them personally and never have been around them in a close way either. They always throw major parties, but as you can probably guess, I've never had an invite. I'm not sure I would even want to go though, if I'm honest. Emma trails off, before the lunch lady greets her and asks what she wants. As Emma orders, I ponder over everything she had just said. If Vincent's family are actually gangsters like she claims, then Vincent could most definitely be involved with drugs and could be even more dangerous than what I thought. That explains the masses of money they seem to have and how everybody states they run the town. One thing was for certain, and that was that I had to stay on his good side for my own safety. I also have to keep him at arm's length, because now my life here was threatened in more ways than one. I have to be cautious and clever if I plan to stay here, for it would be a shame to move on once again when things were starting to look up for me. I have a job, a friend, and I hate to admit it, but something about this place felt addicting. I didn't want to leave anytime soon. I was eager to do anything it takes to stay, to make a new home.